Hello, everybody. I'm on air now. I've been talking and it hasn't been on air. Hi, it's Jules of INNERMIX. Welcome to the INNERMIX Show. I am your host, one of your hosts. The other one, the black one, Miss Simply D, he's currently occupied. He'll be in and joining us in about an hour or so, maybe 30, 40 minutes. He's running a little bit behind some family stuff. So anyway, you have me by myself, for the next half hour or so. So yay! Anyway, happy post 4th of July weekend. I hope you guys all had an awesome, amazing, amazing 3-day weekend. I know I did. I ate a lot of barbecue. I am gonna be eating salad for the rest of this week because I think I ate a whole cow by myself this past weekend. It was awesome. And I have to say, I absolutely love fireworks. Um, I've always loved it, especially like in Disneyland, right? It's like the thing to do. It's the best highlight of the day, or the whole theme park. But so 4th of July, same thing. That's supposed to be like the big highlight. The only thing, I never realized this before until this past weekend. I don't know why. I guess I just never paid attention or anything. But I was with a bunch of friends and family, and a lot of little kids. We were at this park, and I noticed two things. First of all, how scary it must be for little kids, 4th of July, and dogs, or just pets in general. It literally sounds like gunfire, and I just never really thought about it until one of my friend's kids started crying so bad. He just could not stop crying. He was so scared. And he's been, I think he's 3, but he just doesn't like it at all. He kept saying, when will it end? He was in terror the entire time. So I just felt a little bad for him. And then number 2, after the whole whoopla of the fanfare has ended, you just see this crazy cloud of smoke and smog in the air. I could not believe how bad the air quality was when my friends and I were all saying like how our throats were scratchy, we couldn't breathe right, allergies kicking, all that stuff we're breathing in. I didn't even realize it until, I don't know why, this time around it just really hit me. So I can only imagine during 4th of July how much more pollution is happening in the air. But nonetheless, it was an amazing weekend. I swam a lot. I don't know if you can tell, I got a little bit of sun. I'm not as pasty white like Casper anymore. And like I said, I ate a lot. And I had the opportunity to hang out with, I had some girlfriends coming over, and we had an impromptu photo shoot. And I had my guy friends were asking, why are you guys doing this? Do you think you are, or you want to be like models or something? Like, isn't it just for like engagement photos, like couples who do it for, marriage and stuff, weddings and stuff like that? But, for us, we believe we're each other's soulmates, and so we just one of them's married, the other one's about to be married. We just like to do it. This is our second annual, I guess, photo shoot, and we're gonna make it our Christmas cards this year. So that was a lot of fun, and we were able to go to a comedy show. I've been dying to go to a comedy show for so long that I just watched it on Netflix because I want to see so bad. I don't know. I just been wanting to laugh because I believe, as well as many other people, that laughter is absolutely the best medicine. And I guess I just needed to have a little medicine after all the smog that I inhaled. And so we went to this place called Ice House. It's in Pasadena. For those of you who don't know where Pasadena is, it's far. And it's in California, where I am. And so we went to this place, really cute little theater. But one funny thing, I didn't really Unfortunately, I didn't recognize any of the comics, I'm sorry to say, but they were funny and they tried very hard. And I have to give it up to comics, stand-up comics, because I can only imagine how difficult that must be to stand, especially if the crowd is not responsive, like the one that was this past weekend. How hard it is to keep people entertained and keep yourself up and motivated and to keep telling the jokes when nobody's really laughing. So that was really difficult, but I have to give it up for them. They tried very hard. And this one lady, she was a mother of like 3. She's like in her late 40s or so, maybe early 50s. But one of the bits that she did, it was really funny because I could only imagine how I just feel like this is probably how my conversation with my future son will be. Is she had a conversation with her teenager son, and I guess she wanted to talk to him about sex, and so the conversation basically went, her sitting him down and asking him, so son, what do you know about sex? Because she just wanted to make sure that he had all the information correctly, so she doesn't want to be a grandmother too early, and so she just wanted to get all the answers. And so she asked him, what do you know about sex? And he responds, what do you think I know about sex? And then she responds, what do you think I think you know about sex? And then conversation ended. I feel like that's how my conversation will be as well with my son about sex. It will be very strange because it's how it is with my brother. Anyway, we'll get to the INNERMIX show. Tonight, we're going to be discussing a lot of different little topics, and that are actually individually, they're big topics in itself, but we decided to take the opportunity to have this show to not delve too deep because these are all things that have happened in the last week or so, and the conversation just kept coming up, all of them. So we felt that it was important for us to touch upon all of them at the same time because I think people need to hear some of these things right now. And it's also some things that have been going on in our own conversations, just between myself and Dee, something that I've kind of started talking or asking myself, why is this happening? Just things that bugged me. I like to say grind my gears. And so it's a bunch of little topics. Again, I meant big topics, but you know what I mean. So a bunch of just different topics. We're gonna try to cram them all into this one show. Crossing my fingers that it's gonna happen and go well, because it's actually, some of them are very, very heavy, and some of them are very a lot of research involved, and it might take a lot longer, and we might have to actually touch upon them again next week, but we're going to attempt anyway because we are very ambitious people. So yes, first of all, I wanted to discuss something that I personally have been going through with somebody else. It's a family member, and I've also noticed in so many different situations and experiences in the last, I don't know, decade. But sometimes even with our previous people that we were doing business with, or just interning for us, or just, in general. It has to deal with something called Generation Y. And for those of you who don't know what Generation Y is, it's people, people that have been born like around the 90s or so, like late 80s, 90s, around then. That's technically Generation Y. So I have family members in Generation Y, and the reason why I bring this up is because this has been something that I've been going through recently that drove me mad, like bonkers mad, because I, not to toot my own horn or fluff my own feathers or whatever the saying is, I worked since junior high. For as long as I can remember, I did little side jobs here and there, or I tutored a lot. I worked all these crazy odd jobs to put myself through school. And I did not ask my parents for anything. They didn't pay for any of my school loans. I paid for all of those things. I paid for my car. I paid for my insurance. I paid for, I felt the need to be as independent as possible. First of all, granted, for those of you who don't know my back history, my parents didn't live with me since I was in 8th grade. So I had to grow up really fast and I had to be independent, from early on. But so I guess that's kind of ingrained. But then same thing with my younger sister. She also is very independent. She, put herself through this and that, and paid for this and that by herself. She worked very hard. And so we were all like that. She's also, I guess we're Generation X, or on XY, in betweens. But I have a family member who's very much so Generation Y. And there's this thing, and I've been reading a lot of articles on this. There's a lot of research done on Generation Y, and Generation Y equaling to self-entitlement. Not to say that this is a blanket statement like every single person who is in Generation Y is this. And not to say that, but when there are so many articles on a certain topic, and when it's almost like you see it happening more so than not happening, it calls for research to be done, and it calls for journals to be written, and there are a lot of journals that are written on this topic about how Generation Y people are they feel this need to be handed things to them, and they're not happy. And I read this really interesting article today talking about this, and it talks about several different generations. So it goes back to our grandparents' generation, right? And they went through, and depending on where you're in the world, but for the most part, there was like this Great Depression stage where they were very, very poor. Like talking about my grandparents, they were in Korea, so it's not like they were in some castle or some fancy hoity-toity house. They had to actually escape from like the war, the Korean War, the North Korea, fleeing down to South Korea, like Japanese invasion, all that stuff. They endured all of that, and they lived off of nearly nothing, and it was very, very hard, and they were poor. They were eating. And this is not to go so into my family's history, but my grandparents, they had to like escape, and there was a period when they had to, for nourishment and for water, because they were hiding from, the soldiers, they had to eat onions and chew on garlic for water, because they didn't even have water. So that's how hard they had it. And it's hard to believe. It's almost, I love talking to them because it's almost like fairy tales and novels that you're listening to, but it's real life story that happened. So it's kind of amazing. But so all they wanted was for their children to have a successful career, to have better than they did, and have a stable job and a house and family, and no wars and all that stuff. So my parents, so that's my grandparents' generation, and then they instill that into their children. So my parents' generation, they are, they actually were able to fulfill that dream that the grandparents had for them, which is to build a solid career and solid foundation, have a happy family, that was the expectation, and they reached it, and so they were happy. But then, with every generation, I think the expectation just keeps growing and growing and growing, and that's just, I think, human nature. It's just like how, cell phones, you expect more and more every single, with the new device that comes out, you expect something grander to happen. It needs to have better camera, it needs to have better sound, it needs to have more memory, and it needs to have all these multiple different functions that the previous one did not have. And it's great if you meet those expectations, but if it's almost impossible, then you're not happy with whatever it is that you have. So same kind of on that same concept is what is happening with Generation Y. And so Generation Y wants everything that our parents' generation had, plus more. They expect right out of college to have their fantasy career, and not just a successful career. They want to have a passion about their career, something that they are so passionate about, which is good. But apparently, I just read this. Apparently, that's not something that has been around for all the ages. It's a term that happened in the last 20 years. I found that very interesting. The passion for your career, not just have a successful career, but passion for your career has been something that just started forming or being spoken around about the last 20 years. So people now want to have this awesome, amazing career super fast. They expect it right out of school. They almost want it to be handed to them. And the reason why I say that is because, like I said, it's something that I'm going through currently with a family member. They are a recent college graduate, trying to get into grad school, and they don't really want to do the footwork. And by footwork, I mean, you need to have a certain amount of things done before you go to grad school. Like, you need to have some kind of background in the field that you want to get to grad school for. So you need to have either an internship, work experience, something, letter rec, something. And they know that. Yet, do they put the effort to actually get it? They ask other people for help, and that other people meaning me. So I am very frustrated because, okay, so fine, I will help you to get this and this done. I'm not going to do it for you, but I will provide you with the little bit of nuggets that you can grab and you can go and try to do on your own. So, because it's like that old saying, you don't just give a person fish. In order for them to have a longevity and a life, you teach them how to fish, and then they can live on their own. And so same thing, like I don't want to constantly give this person everything, which I think it was a mistake in the past that this person got everything, and so I don't want to give them everything. I want to teach this person to stand on their own feet, and be able to be proactive and be analytical and be interactive and social and just just do things on their own. You have to, especially not to say it doesn't matter as a female or a male, it doesn't matter. You need to be able to stand up on your own 2 feet and not just constantly rely on other people. Not to say that you can do everything on your own. I don't believe in that either. But you also don't want to be constantly handed things to you and you just expect it to. So my issue with this person, this family member, is that I have given them a lot of opportunities that came because I did ask around for my circle of friends and my circle of friends, his circle of friends, and they were generous enough to give me tidbits or like little throw me a bone or like, here, contact this person. Oh, I have this, this will help with that situation and blah 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 blah. And I presented it to my family member. Nothing has been done. It's been over a week and it's driving me up the wall. And I want to smack this person, but I can't. Not because of any legal issues or anything, just this distance is the only thing stopping me. But I don't know how to change the mind. And this is, this isn't only this family member of mine. This has happened so many other times in my interaction with people kind of around this person's age. And Simply D and I have actually talked about it many times. They just, I don't know what it is. They just have this grandiose idea that they are gonna be sought after, and whatever skill sets they have is so so amazing and so spectacular and so special that everybody's gonna want this, want you. They're gonna come for you, regardless of whether you do anything or not. You're knocking doors or putting in resumes, any of those things. They're just gonna find you somehow. And this amazing job, this dream job that you've always wanted, is just gonna fall on your lap, and it's gonna happen. That rarely ever happens. Even in the Bible, it don't happen like that. Moses or people in the Bible had to cross the desert for 40 years for their promised land and stuff like that. So it takes work to get to where you want to go. And some people don't get that concept, and it's hard for them to put in the work. And that gets frustrating when, especially if it's a family member that you care about. So this is my grind my gears section, and I'm just ranting about something that I've been going through that's been bothering me a lot. I don't know if you guys have, feel free to chime in if you have anything similar to this, that you feel the same or you don't agree with me. You can totally tell me and let me know. But there are many other things. So that's just one. Oh, I don't know what just happened. Anyway, so there's another thing. That's just one. Topic one. Topic number two. As you know, Simply D's married. I'm single. I'm looking to get married. I'm crossing all fingers. And I really want to get married. And not just because it's something I've been dreaming about for so long. Blah, blah, blah. No, not that. I believe in the sanctity of marriage. I believe in what it means. What I feel like it'll complete my mission on life in life. I will have fulfilled something, and not to say that I haven't fulfilled other things, but people are not meant to necessarily be alone, and not whether it be with friends, whether it be with family. I've always wanted to have a big family. I've grown up in a big family. My mom has like 4 siblings. My dad also has 4 siblings. All my cousins, my mom's siblings' kids, we would all get together. And I loved it, and it was amazing. And when I grew up, this was when I was in Korea, of course, but because now I don't really have any family members here. But when I was growing up, all of my cousins, we basically acted as if we were all siblings, because we all lived around each other. We would have dinners together, just go out together. Our grandparents would have like family service. Every week we would all gather and then just sing hymns and stuff like that. It was kind of cute. But I miss that, and that's what I want in my own life. And so I believe in the beauty of marriage, what it means, that the longevity of it, and that commitment. I think is so precious and it's so amazing. And it's because it's, for those of you who don't know, yes, I'm Christian. Simply D is also Christian. We believe in how Jesus has that kind of commitment to us, and to fulfill that commitment, we also do the same with somebody else, that our spouse. And what makes me very sad is in the last, I don't know, year or so, not even a year. It just happened really quickly in the last couple months, actually, where I would go to the grocery store, or get magazine subscriptions and whatnot, or like read blogs and things that show up on Facebook or whatever, and it'll be celebrity after celebrity after celebrity couples who are not married. They're just dating, and they're pregnant, and it's, I'm pregnant, we're pregnant, it's fantastic, great, you're beautiful baby on the way. I don't have anything against the fact that you're pregnant, but what I do feel sad about is that, especially in Hollywood, and not because Hollywood has such a big influence on our culture, on society, on our youth, that when celebrities, despite of what they might say, and I don't want to be a role model, I just want to be me, blah blah blah, you are. Regardless of whether you want to or not, you are. That just comes with the job. That's just a territory. So, whatever you do, there will be hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of people who will model themselves after you because they look up to you. They enjoy your acting. They enjoy your music. They enjoy, your sportsmanship, whatever it might be. They look up to you because they want to aspire to do the same. And so however you live your life, some people might, kind of mold themselves along that same path. And when too many people are having these type of relationships where it's so open, it creates very unstableness for the children. And that's what makes me really sad is I actually read an article. This one is from the UK, but it's kind of like the article that I read earlier about the Generation Y. That one was from the Huffington Post. I can't talk. Huffington Post. But this one is from kind of the same, called The Telegraph, and it's from the UK. And the title is "Most Children Will Be Born Out of Wedlock by 2016," and that scared me because that just means people are not getting married anymore. They're just in and out of relationships and just having children. And nothing against single parents. I think you guys are, I think single parents are amazing to be doing what they're, it's so hard to raise a child. I can only imagine. My sister's pregnant right now and she is a house. And I can only imagine to be going through that by yourself. And it's difficult. And it's all, all respect to you. But when it comes to just the research that has been done, it basically, when people are not married and having children, the children in those kind of family situations, they are not as stable. They will, just the research that I'm reading, it'll say, they will most likely not do as well at school. They will not be as attentive. They will not be as, they might have a little bit more likelihood to have substance abuse problems and things like that. It's by all this research that has been done that all says that, and that made me very upset because all these kids, all they want is every child, I believe, needs to have a mother figure and a father figure to understand fully what their value is. And because, a female, you can learn a lot from the mother. You really can, right? The comfort, the love, how to be a woman, how to think like a woman, how to walk like a strong woman, all that comes from the mother. But also, what comes from the father, I also miss this because I didn't live with my dad. I had and have a father in my life, but I never really actually lived with my dad ever. I think at most out of my entire life, 5 years. And that's because my dad's a pastor, for those of you who don't know, and he was studying abroad in America while I was in Korea. And then eventually all of us came to America to live with him, and we lived here for about 5 years, maybe a little less than that. And then he actually went back to Korea when I was in 8th grade. So the time while we all lived together in America was pretty much the entire time that I lived with my dad. And that's the only experience I have living with my dad. And that makes me thinking about it, that makes me really sad. But because of this experience that I had in my life, I think I started to have a little bit of daddy issues. So meaning because your dad will tell you how beautiful you are. Your father will show you how men should treat you. Your father will show you how you should interact with, what you should look for in a man, and that kind of stuff. And because I didn't have him to tell me that I was beautiful, tell me that I was, worth it, and all those things for so long, there was a period in my life when I was, that's very, children are very vulnerable, especially in the teenage years, and I didn't have that growing up, and so it was really difficult for me in understanding my self-value, and I think that's why I developed a lot of body image issues and self-esteem issues. For looking at me now, people might not realize or think that I have these issues, especially because I talk about how much I love to eat and stuff like that, and I'm very vocal. But there was a period when I was more shy, and I wasn't as outgoing. I never wore shorts or tank tops. I had crazy body dysmorphia or whatever. I was bulimic. I I had a lot of problems. Not anything necessarily not curable or so dramatic, but to me, you know, every person goes through things differently, right? So for me, that was a lot of stuff to handle, and um, I think once I really started to develop a relationship with my dad, because it's difficult to do it when you're halfway around the world. When time changes are so, you know, when it's daytime here, it's nighttime there, and you're literally thousands of miles away. And it was hard to form a tight bond, but even though I really wanted one. And so there was a time when as a young adult, as a young woman, I made really bad choices. I picked the wrong kind of guys because I didn't know what I deserved. I didn't know what I should look for. It took a while to really get to that point where I now know what I should look for, what I now know what I deserve, and what I want. But you know, if my dad had been there to talk me through this and teach me this, I think it might have been a little bit of a different experience for me. And I think the same goes for a lot of people that I had conversations with. I have a lot of friends from broken homes, and I have friends who were raised by a single parent. And you know, looking back at when we talk in hindsight about our lives and the choices that we made and why, and we do that a lot. We're kind of weird. But when we talk about stuff like that, we come into this portion where we think, I wonder if it would have been different if both my parents were around, and if both my parents were, you know, my parents were in a loving relationship, if, you know, everything was fine and everything was stable, if I would think differently now, or I would be different now, or blah, 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 blah. And, you know, that, not to have that go into a bad direction, like, oh, what if all the time. But I think it's an interesting perspective, you know, like if things were different, then this can happen, and then, or like if, because we always, well, for me anyway, and for my friends, we're always trying to better ourselves, especially if we see something that we don't like, if we see something that might be a problem, if we see something that we feel we need to work on, or other people see that we need to work on, we try to make that happen. And we ask questions on why we do certain things, or especially if something is bothering us, we'll ask ourselves, why is this happening, or why do I feel this way, or why do I think this way, why do I react this way? And so, yeah, I have a very introspective group of friends, I think, and I'm very lucky for that, because it'll be harder for me to have this conversation completely by myself sometimes, but because I have them, I can do that. And I feel, you know, for those of you who have good girlfriends or good guy friends that you can do this with, it's really helpful to have these kind of conversations where you can be completely honest and very, you know, vulnerable, and still feel safe and okay and not feeling judged. And I think it's important to have that kind of bond with people, because we are very social people, right? Anyway, so having said all that, I've been watching a lot of Netflix shows. I've been kind of addicted. There are so many that are so good, but there's one in particular that I've been watching this past weekend, and I couldn't stop. I literally got addicted. It's called The Killing. And for those of you who, I won't give anything up, because if you guys watch it, you know, but it's about, you know, these two cops who are trying to solve a murder case of this young girl, and it's just, you know, the story revolves around the young girl's family and like all this other stuff. There's politicians involved and, you know, crazy stuff. And it's kind of crazy, the way everything is, like, you think it's one person who, you know, who's the culprit, and then it's totally not, and like, oh, what's it? Anyway, but one thing that I can share without totally giving away everything, one of the characters talks about, you know, their grandfather, and the grandfather, he had a house, he had a wife, you know, when he was in his heyday, he had a wife, he had kids, he had, you know, a great life. he loved his life. And then I think he worked at the mines or something. And then one day there was an accident that happened, and he lost both of his legs. And he, obviously was very shocked and angry for a while, and upset, and didn't know how to proceed for a little bit. But that just lasted a short little while. And the quote that came out of that experience was, he basically saying, this just was bad luck, but bad luck. The quote that I really liked was, bad luck can either destroy you, you can let it destroy you, or bad luck will show you what kind of person you really are. And so what that means is, you can either, in the face of bad luck, you can either give up and forget it, and just be defeated, or you stand up and you be the best that you can be throughout this. You even use this bad luck to become better, a better version of yourself, and be stronger. And that was very empowering for me, because I never necessarily thought I had quote unquote bad luck. I just thought I don't have a normal life like all my other friends do. But I could have turned out really bad, and I could have turned out better too. But luck of just grace of God, and just the people that He put around me, and I am here where I am today, and I am very grateful and thankful, and very blessed. And I do also think it was a power of prayer and people praying for me and pushing me through. But I also never in my mind did I ever say I'm gonna give up, because that wasn't an option. I never thought that way. And so I think just thinking positively through whatever situation, I think, is important. And for those of you who have no idea what the hell I'm talking about as far as my life, because this is a new, I do understand we have new viewers, because this is something that I shared in our radio show, when we used to have a radio show. But so this is my story. My dad's a pastor. I am the oldest of three. I lived in Korea. I was born and raised in Korea till I was 8. I came to the States when I was 8. I lived in Michigan, Detroit, Michigan for about 1.5 years, and I moved to LA. So I've been in LA ever since then. So for a very long time. And then when I was in 8th grade, like I shared earlier, my parents decided to move back to Korea. So I was here. And I have 2 siblings, so a sister and a brother. And I had to basically be on my own since 8th grade. My siblings all went and moved back with my parents because they were too young. So I lived with the host family, kind of like a foreign exchange student, rented a room, had to pay my parents' bills because they still had bills to pay, like credit cards and stuff like that. So I learned how to write a check in 8th grade. And in senior year in high school, my sister decided to move back to America, because education in Korea is very different from America, and it's like the system itself is very different. And my sister also couldn't catch up with the social differences, the language barrier, all of that. It was too difficult, and so she moved back. And I got my own apartment in senior year in high school. And live with my sister. So I became her caretaker. And then all craziness happened during those years. My sister and I are very different personalities, especially back then. I was the type to just kind of layer my emotions on top of each other. My sister's complete opposite and explodes like a dynamite. If she's mad, she's mad. And then she's done. But then me, I'm just like, save it for later, and then eventually it explodes really bad. But I never hit my sister before. I was more of a, what's the word? I wasn't as proactive back then. Let's just say that. I had a hard time dealing with the fact that I was a teenager myself, and then I also had to take care of a teenager who had abandonment issues because she also felt the same like me. Why did my parents leave me? Type thing. Both of us had to grow up really fast, and then dealing with each other during that time was very difficult. And then in college, my youngest brother also moved in with me and came back to America to live with me as well. So now I have two siblings who are living under my roof and under my care when I was also at the time still a teenager. Or actually, no, I was in my 20s, but early 20s. And so very young adult, still wanting to, still young-minded myself. I still want to go out and have fun and whatever, and explore and learn about myself. But I had this crazy responsibility called siblings back home. And so I couldn't do a whole lot. But that also could be blessing in disguise. Anyway, and there was a period when I was very, very mad. Especially, I think, one thing I didn't share, like when I was in junior high, when my parents first left, at first I thought, oh, cool, no parents, no guidance, awesome. I could do whatever the heck I want. I can stay out as long as I. That didn't happen because the family that I was living with were even more strict than my parents. So that wasn't gonna happen. But during that year, that first year that they had left, I, got very, very depressed, and I started to have suicidal thoughts. I started to think about my funeral, who would show up, and this is in 8th grade. How would, what kind of flowers would be at my funeral? I don't even think about my wedding stuff. I don't know what flowers, what dress, what it's gonna look like. I don't know any of that. But I was planning out my funeral. And as an 8th grader. So very bizarre child, yes. Anyway, I thought about how I would die, and then I would, think about how my parents would cry, and that would make me sad, and so I would start crying. And it's very, I don't know why I would do that, but I did. And it lasted for, I think, a good year that I was that depressed. And then, no, wow, I just had an epiphany. I think that's why around the same time every year, because I think my parents left around winter time, like late August, late fall, early winter. And every year since then, around the same time, I would get depressed. And I think it was so traumatic for me at the time that it made an implant in my persona or in my DNA or what makeup, that every year I would just get very, very sad. And I didn't know why. For the longest time, I didn't understand why. Until very, very recently, I started talking stuff out and figuring stuff out, asking questions, why do I do that, and I figured out that's why. And so, anyway, yeah, I had a very difficult time dealing with myself growing up, and all the things that I'm learning, I learned about myself, my likes and dislikes, and my limits and all that stuff. And then also having to deal with two younger siblings who are going through the same thing but at a slower level because they're younger than me. So I was like beyond frustrated. And there was a time in college that I almost had a nervous breakdown. And I went to the counselor because I would, every day or at least once a week, I would just ball up in a corner and then I would start crying. And I didn't know why. I just would cry. And so I went to my school therapist and had a conversation with them, and they said, you have just too much on your plate. So either take out, so what do you have? You have school, you have work. Well, I was working full-time too while I was going to school. So you have school, you have work, and you have sibling duties. So you have to work because you have to make money to pay rent and stuff. And then sibling duties, you can't give that up. So only thing you can take out right now in this equation is school. So why don't you take a year off of school? So that's what I did. And that helped me so immensely. So that's the main reason why I believe so fully, so wholeheartedly in therapy, because it helps you understand stuff and break things down. And when you have too much going on, you can't think clearly or focus much at all. And hi Dee, welcome.
Hey,
um,
can you hear me clearly?
yep.
Cool.
Um, but yeah, so I'm just talking about my past history and
I know.
how I.
I've been watching the show
Oh, good.
and
So,
talking to our fans.
oh,
Um,
nice.
you've been getting comments on in our little comment box. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, since I'm not where I can actually participate, I can at least participate.
Oh, I don't see the comments. Oh,
You have
I
to,
see now.
yeah, you have to minimize the screen that you're actually in, and then it shows up behind it for some odd reason because it's Google. So
I see it now.
yeah.
Anyway, so like, now I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so yeah, I went to see a counselor. I took a year off from school and I just started working, figuring stuff out. And the whole reason why I was telling the story is bad luck can either destroy you or it'll make you stronger and it'll show your true colors, basically. It'll show who you really are as a person. And I got that from a Netflix TV show.
I found out the same thing in scripture, girl. Wow, we go to the same source.
Oh,
No,
yeah? But it really hit home for me when I was watching it yesterday or the day before, and yeah, I'm a little bit addicted to the show. It's
the
called
killing.
The Killers. Yeah, The Killing,
The killers,
and
yeah.
but yeah, it really rang true for me, and I kept thinking about stuff, and the people in my life who have faced bad luck, same thing. I have another really good friend of mine who, single mother, family. Um, she didn't have a father figure at all in her life. She could have, and mom was also never around because she was always working, so she was always home by herself. She could have turned out so bad, like so bad, like wrong crowd, got into drugs. Who the heck knows? She could have turned out really, really bad. But she is very successful. She's very positive. She's one of the most positive people I know, which is other than Simply D. Like
It's like,
she,
can't take my crown.
no, like she, like whatever cards you have, you can have worse. So deal with what you have. Be grateful for what you have. Is her mentality, which I love. Except for when you kind of want to just sit in that disdain for a little bit. I know maybe you guys don't know what I'm talking about, but sometimes it feels good to be like angry or bitter or just she won't have it. So she's a good friend to have to like get you out. But like she's one of those people who just strapped on her boots and just said let's go, and that's how she
Hmm.
faces everything and just let's go. And so she's just climbing ladders and climbing ladders, and she's a very successful woman now, and married to a cop. Anyways, don't mess with her. So yeah, like and then there are other people who have everything, and then they just squander it all away, and that drives me up the wall too. Um, but
Well,
it really, I think, starts from how you view yourself, not just how others view you and how others think of you or love you or whatever, but it really, because other people can love you all they want. If you don't love yourself, it doesn't really stir up anything. If you value yourself and if you love yourself and if you have high expectations of yourself, I think it'll motivate you to push yourself further. And it definitely helps that people around you will do the same. No doubt about that. But I think if you don't have any fire within you, it makes it very difficult. So,
well, actually, even with the whole like even along that same line, when it comes down to because people who have a vision for themselves, um, they tend to see a reason to move forward. And when you don't have a vision for yourself, that's when you start to squander. That's when you start to because you don't have a value for the things because you don't have an expectation for what's next.
exactly.
You don't have a view of what's next, and you don't. So everything else starts to depreciate in value because you don't see a value for you anymore. As to I can get from here to here now. I can go from this to this, and in order to make it, in order to have a reason to make it, you have to see yourself past where you are. And recently, I had I've had a very interesting week. And not even counting my asthma attacks and almost having to end up in the hospital and all that. So
Oh, fun.
Oh yeah, good times, good times. I've made a couple statements this last week that I realized. I said, wow, I must just be getting older, because yes, because I realized, one, I told my wife that, I'm old enough to, like, there are things that I'll do because it keeps, it promotes harmonious interaction. That was my word. And stuff. But I said, but I work way too hard, and I care way too much about others and how they feel about themselves for me to not care enough about myself to treat myself well. So my thing is, I'm not going to go places that I'm being invited to based on, well, basically you invite me, but you really don't want me there. So I'm not going to go there to be treated just any kind of way. It just doesn't work for me. And so I talked to Jules about this. So I had to make a decision on which events I was going to go to based on this previous statement. So I picked the right one. I'll pick the right one, but this is when prayer really works and how everything comes together, because I had already prepared myself mentally to go to this event and things like that, so that I expected to, be there but not really part of. And it's happened so much that I've just learned how to allow it to happen so that everybody else is having a good time and everything. But earlier this week, like literally just got through teaching Bible study. It ended early on Thursday, and right when I was walking out the door to do something, I got a phone call from someone who actually helped INNERMIX become the public presence that we are now. And they were literally talking about ending their life because they were going through, just crazy things. Their health is failing, and they don't feel appreciated, and it's like they've acquired a lot of respect, but the respect they acquired did not translate into people actually being there for him as he was going through these things. And and it's interesting because I was going through something similar over the last, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, something like that. And I was in all the emotions, all the things that he said he was experiencing. I was literally able to finish his sentences because I understood those emotions. Like we talked about last week, I will take the time to understand what I'm going through. So as I get through, I know where I was and how I got out, right? And because these things hit us all, from the loneliness to the why and how am I going to continue and is it worth continuing on and all that kind of stuff. And then you have to come up with an answer. He couldn't find an answer, but I found an answer. The only thing that he was staying, like some of the things he was doing was purely because he made a promise to INNERMIX. That was the only reason he even started, kept doing certain things that he was doing. But it was funny because I was calling him. I had tried reaching him before to relieve him of one of those promises that he made to us, because we knew that he had been great at what he was doing, but we knew he was getting tired. He was going through a lot of things, so we want to take that pressure off of him. So so it just so happened that there was that pressure that we had on him that was keeping him focused on doing something for somebody else. So it was really interesting. But so talked to him literally for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and he said it was the first time he had laughed or even felt anything positive in about 6 months.
Oh, man.
Because
that's a long time.
It's a long time to feel like you're by yourself. It's a long time to feel like like you don't matter. And but there were statements that he was making that I know will ring true to a lot of people out there, because I heard this come up a few times over the over the weekend. It was a long weekend. It truly was. But one of the statements was that I'm always helping other people out, but when I need someone to just pay attention to me or see me, they don't see me. I'm just not here anymore. And he said, I don't even know how to describe it. I said, afterthought. You feel like an afterthought. He said, that's exactly what it is. I said, I know. I talked about it on the show. You should watch the show more often. I talked about it. And he just laughed. And I said, I said, there comes this, I said, sometimes you get to a point to where you feel like someone should not only say they appreciate you, but actually show their appreciation, because in the era that, we kind of come from, especially when you look at our parents and stuff, like, it wasn't just, oh, it's going to be okay, hope it works out. It was more of a, well, what can I do to help? Well, you know what? Since I can't do nothing, I'm going to sit here with you. We're going to watch movies. We're going to do something, because you don't need to be by yourself while you're going through this thing. I don't care how much you say you can handle it. You can't handle it on your own. God didn't send you out by yourself. He said it's 2 by 2. So then I started talking to some older married couples that I know through the church and stuff like that, and they say, it's good to have a spouse, but it's better to have a friend. And when it comes down to these things, because your spouse is already going through it with you. So sometimes it's harder for you to relate in a way, because you're trying to protect them from what you're going through. But your friends are the ones who, will see these things. And I said, wow. I said, my mom used to say stuff like that. She said, yeah, I mean, I had your dad. She said, and we went through these things together. We survived these things together. But it was my friends who kidnapped me to take me out so I wouldn't be depressed about my 2 sons going blind at such an early age without any warning. It was them that, when my older brother went down for a nap, he woke up totally blind. My mother and her friends were in the living room playing cards and just having a good time. And she was in such shock when she realized that he could not see. She couldn't see anymore. She didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. But my godmother and my aunt, they said, sit there, don't you move. We got this. And they literally just took over because she could not function. Nowadays, it's hard to find anybody who's going to step in and say, you know what, I got you. Don't worry about it. Don't. We're going to, because everybody's too busy trying to keep up with their own lives, because, it seems like sometimes we're out of control. Our lives are out of control. That it's hard to be there for people in those moments when it's clear that they need support. His biggest request was he just wanted to go to a movie with a friend. He was willing to pay for the movie. He was willing to drive there himself, and then the friend drive there and meet him there, and they just hang out. He just wanted to be outside of his situation for a short period of time. Mm-hmm. And with all the people, now, New York's very compact, with all the people that he had around him, everybody said, oh, I wish I could, but, I'm there for you. And then when he called them, they said, oh, so what did you do today? Like, oh, nothing. I was just sitting at home, watching Netflix.
Are you serious?
Serious. Like,
these people call themselves friends.
Well, that's the thing, is like the term has been so washed out, friends. It's like I'm known for being that I'm I'm that guy who will be I'm kind of an annoying friend at times. I'm the one who will check upon you because you were on my mind, you were in a dream, whatever. And the responses I usually get at first, like, why are you calling me? I'm busy, whatever. After a while, people just learn to accept that's D. He's going to check on me whether I need him to or not. And then the one time, and then there's always that one time where they're like, I was going through, why didn't you call me? Hey, you told me that you didn't even. But I grew up in, like, everybody has this view of what Compton is like, but it's a very warm community. Sometimes because you duck and you're all together huddled up. No, but it's a very warm community where no one goes hungry. Because everybody's going to eat. Even if we don't get along, you're going to eat, because we have to survive. We don't have to get along to survive. We just need to get along so we can get out, so we can get along. We got to get along to get along. So, but he was going through something that, it really just, was breaking my heart to hear him, because he was reflecting how I felt a few weeks ago, except I wasn't, at the point of giving up. And I think I've given up because it just never worked out for me, because anytime I thought about it, I felt that swift kick from the Holy Spirit, whether it was through a friend or, in church or whatever, basically saying you were built for this, so stop your complaining and get moving. Get to moving. But so after talking to him, and he was feeling better and things were, moving forward, then I ended up going to the studio, and I found out that I met somebody there who they may be losing their sight.
Really?
And oh yeah. And it was one of those things, because they were bold enough to say, hey, can I ask you a question real quick? Most people are very, tiptoey around the whole blind issue and stuff. So obviously they don't watch this show, but 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 they had a few questions because they were trying to figure out if it was based on diabetes, this, that, and the other, whatever. So I told them, about my site and all that kind of stuff, because the scariest thought, and this occurred to me in so many different situations, but the scariest thought for most people is if they lose their sight, they have no value anymore. And it's a very interesting thing, because it's like, what can I do if I can't see? But if you have no vision for yourself, then what can you do? You cannot see. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very interesting thing. And when she said it, I said, I said, well, I can barely see, and there's a lot that I can see in you that you can't accomplish. And even if you lose your sight, someone will show you how to move forward through that process, because it's just another process to get through. And it doesn't mean you'll be less independent. It actually means that you'll be stronger for being somebody who knows how to ask for help when you need it. But it's a very terrifying thing, because they started to their value of their life was attached to a physical thing. The first person, it was his kidneys. The second person, it's her eyesight. And then on that evening, I met somebody else who realized that they have sleep apnea, and they also have another sleeping disorder that that basically is a form of narcolepsy. So they're clinically disabled because they could pass out at any time. And fought it for years, trying to basically not have to admit to a disability. So again, he was questioning his value in who he is and where he and and all that. So I spent my long weekend between asthma attacks talking to people who basically lost their vision for who they were as an individual, not what the world would see them as. And like it's an incredible situation when you go through and you see all these people who are losing they're losing sight of themselves. One person somewhat literally, but they're losing sight of themselves. They can't see their value outside of this is all I know. This is all and then each person I talk to, except for the first one, is in a relationship, and they still felt very, very alone. One of them is even married, but still felt very, very alone in the process. And I had to tell them, I told them, I said, being married does not mean that you're not going to feel these things, like you're not going to feel like you're by yourself. And because when I would go through some of the things that I go through, my wife is there for me the only way she knows how to be, but I'm still the one experiencing it.
Right.
And sometimes I need someone outside of her, because I know she loves me and I know she will do whatever it takes, but she's part of me. So when she says I'm here, that warms my heart, but it still makes me feel a little empty at times, because I realize that she's the only one who will notice that these things are going on with me. And I'm like, so I really only matter to her. And in one way, it's like, oh, great, because I matter to her. But what it all came down to for all these people is they felt like they weren't going to matter anymore. They weren't going to be valued anymore, because something in their life was changing. Their whole situation was changing. And two of them were talking about suicide. And the second one, who was talking to me about suicide, basically said, I was thinking about it, and I knew I was only days away. And and basically she said, but when I saw you, I felt like I could talk to you about it, because I felt like you might know something about this. And I said, I know what it's like to feel like you have no value. I know what it's like to feel like you're accomplishing things, and at the same time still feel like you don't matter outside of a certain circle, and all that. I said, but I'm going to say a word to you that's, past, you'll be fine, and this, that, and the other. I said, there's a word that people throw around a lot, and when they throw it around, it's usually very empty. And it's only because they don't really know the true meaning of the word in this community. When, like, a lot of people want to be part of a community. They want to feel like they're part of something. And more our sense of community.
I think everybody feels that way.
Yes, but more and more our sense of community is starting to be more isolated. Because in these communities, people are not communicating anymore, right? So really it's just a hangout, not a community. it's a well, yeah, but it's but it's just a place to be seen. But it's no longer a place where people are really talking to you about who you are, about their dreams, hopes, and aspirations, supporting you in your dreams, hopes, and aspirations. It's like I was writing this list down for an upcoming episode, and I was talking about it was just about community, because over the years, like I know Jules is a big community person, and I know that a lot of the people that I work with, they're big community people. But then I started thinking about it, and I said, well, can you be part of a community and not actually communicate with it?
Yep, because you know what I just read today also? Something called a selfie party. So it's like people go and they take selfies. I was like, what? Are you for real? So yeah, and what's the point? To look like you are having fun.
Yep.
To have amazing selfie photos, and like, look what I'm doing, look where I'm at, look who I'm with. But all you do is take photos. Like, you don't. That's the extent of the interaction with people. How ridiculous is this society today? Like, really? I mean,
But
back in the day, house parties, it was all about meeting new people and talking and hanging out with your friends, having a beer or whatever, and just like, doing a dance-off or something,
right.
something interactive and fun, and having a good time conversing with each other. Not, hey, let's take a photo, and then we're having such a good time because we're taking a photo. It makes me very upset.
Well, it allows for more of a shallow interaction so that you don't have to become invested in the people.
Yeah, exactly.
But investing in the people means that you have to give of yourself, and most people, a lot of the things that are going on today, just like if you're like, as you read about Generation Y, you also read about how they're having a harder time connecting. And yet because they're having a harder time connecting past party. We've had past the party phase, and it becomes a bit of a problem. It creates not only a disconnect, but it also creates this thing where now the people who are like, in our generation, who are more like, oh my goodness, I was so emotional in the 90s. I was so, I so care about the people. They get so burnt out on caring that they want to be more like the Generation Y. They were like, you know what? If they don't care, I don't care. So you're starting to see it get to older groups of people who, like, for some reason, it's spreading the wrong direction. Like it's taking. So now you have people who are saying, okay, well, if they don't care, I don't have to care, because that's the way the world is today. And then you get people who are feeling like, I wish somebody cared. I wish somebody would show me just a little bit of compassion. I wish somebody could just say, you were on my mind. And I was looking that up just to see if that's even a common phrase anymore. And it's not. It's not even a common phrase. You were on my mind. I was thinking about you. Let's get together. Or I know you're like, there was this thing where someone wrote this beautiful letter basically stating, I was reading it online. It was basically stating that I know you're going through some hard things, and I know that my schedule is busy. I'm taking some vacation time so I can go spend a few days with you, even if all we do is sit at your house and watch TV. And but the person who wrote it was somebody who was living paycheck to paycheck. And so, every dollar counts, but they said, what's the use of making money if you can't take the time out to go be with people who need you in the moment? But she said, because God will take care of the rest of that. Yep. She said, but I need to be there with the person. And I was just so like, wow, it's interesting how rare it is to find these kind of personalities now. And and yet, you look at other countries, it's more of it's still family matters. Not this show, but but family matters. Sense of community matters. But here, community has taken on a whole different phrase. It's a whole different meaning. But I was looking at what makes a strong community, and one of the first things is like I'm a part of many communities. I'm part of the church community, but I communicate with the church, not just my church, but other churches pretty regularly. I mean, shoot, I even like a couple years ago, I think. I said, we were planning our church picnic, and I said, hey, let's get Jules' church too. So I started just reaching out, because I'm like, and if most of us speak Korean, we'll learn it. We'll interact as food. We'll have no problem, because that was one of the concerns that came up. But what if everybody can't? It doesn't matter. So next thing and that's my approach to everything. If language is the only barrier that you think we're going to have, it's not an issue. There's
Yep.
music and there's food. Got it.
That reminds me. My dad was saying this about me when I first moved to the States when I
Uh-huh.
was 8. I didn't know lick of English. I barely knew my ABCs. And apparently on the first day of school, I think I went in second grade or third grade, second grade. And first day of school, he came to pick me up after school, very worried and kind of, you know, curious on how I interacted with the kids because I didn't speak anything.
Uh-huh.
He saw me in the playground just playing with all these kids. And then so he motioned me over, so I came over to him, and then I don't remember any of this, by the way. But he was like, so how was your day? Like, what are you saying with the other kids? Like, how did you guys communicate? And I told him in my, how old was I? 8? Telepathy. I communicated with telepathy, and but it's body language says so much more than just words, right? And so
Mhm.
sometimes more than words can ever say. And I think like what Dee's saying is very true. That the language barrier sometimes is frustrating. It can be. I have that with my mother, but that's a whole other kind of barrier. Um, but but body language and telepathy apparently can work better.
She said body language and telepathy. I mean, in the black culture, it's really just a bunch of sounds that the women make that tell you the whole story. You know,
Mm.
so, uh-huh. Like that's all you need to know. Everything else, me and my friend Daryl were doing this the other day. Just cracked. I think we were cracking my wife up at the time because we were like, "Oh, we know what these." No, it was another friend of ours who came to Bible study 2 weeks ago or something like that. But anyway, so we're talking about in this community situation, like a lot of people say that they want to feel like they belong, but they don't necessarily want to invest in being part of their community. And most people nowadays don't belong to just one community. Most people belong to an average of 3 to 4 communities. So so I was writing down my list of communities that I belong to just to see, if I'm living up to the expectations that you have when you are part of a community, and even your group of friends are a community. That's the community that you guys basically create, and so I'm like, okay, do I communicate with my friends? Yeah, pretty regularly. Do I try to see them whenever possible? But even when talking to some of my friends, they said it's more important because, well, see, I was talking to one of my friends whose father is actually really ill right now and could be passing away in a few weeks. He said, D, it's more important that I talk to you than that I see you. Because I know that you're working toward a goal that God has for you. So if you're worried about me seeing you, he said, then your priorities are mixed up. Just talk to me. He said, I'm good. He said, I'm about to go back across the country. Because I haven't seen him. He's been in town for almost a week now. Haven't even had a chance to see him. And he said, his wife's mother just passed away while they were on their way out here to say goodbye to his dad.
Oh,
And
damn.
He's like, all I needed to, he said, so when you called me out the blue just because I was on your mind, he said, that's all I needed. He said, because I have a family. He said, I have to be there for my wife and for my kids whose grandparents are basically just dropping like flies. And that's how he said it. He said, this, that, and the other. He said, and all I needed to know was that you were there for me. And then, so when I said, well, if you need me, I'll be there physically. He said, he said, you don't stop doing what you're doing. He said, because that's what encourages me to do what I need to do. And he said, that's the kind of friends we are. I'm like, when did he start to sound like an old black woman? But anyway, that's just how we do it around here, And I was telling my wife about, how the way I grew up, if somebody was going through a hard time or something like that, or if somebody was or even if a husband and wife had not had an opportunity to go out for a long time because they had young kids or whatever, the community would say, oh, no, they going out because they staying together. So you go watch their kids. So-and-so works at such and such hotel, so they're going to get you a discount so that you can go stay over there for the weekend so y'all can, do what y'all need to do because y'all need to get away from these kids so that you can come back to these kids in the right frame of mind. But I grew up watching those kinds of that kind of stuff. Or when there's something that happens with me and my wife and my family all the time, and I just think it's hilarious every time I see it happen. My family members will say to my wife, what do you want? Come on, we're going to get something to eat. She'll say, oh, I just don't have the money for it right now. I got the kids, this, that, and the other, and blah, blah. They said, we didn't ask you all that. We said, come on, we going to get something to eat, right? And she just cracks me up because she falls for it every time. Every time. They didn't ask a question. You know what I'm saying?
It was a statement.
It was a statement. It just like, come on, you're getting up out this house because you ain't gonna stay up in here with these blinds closed and all depressed. No, I ain't seen you in a week, and I know that you're a person who likes to be out. We're gonna come. You ain't staying in here. That happened to my mom. That happened to one of a good friend, because we go through lots of stuff, but often we feel like we're going through it by ourselves because people have lost the ability to reach out effectively. And it's something that has to change, because even when the people were saying Lazarus has died, and blah blah, Jesus didn't say, oh well, I'm sorry to hear that. He actually journeyed to them, and it was a trip. It wasn't it was a 3-day trip, but he still went so that they would know that there's still hope, that they would know that there's still a future, because they had lost all hope. And they were basically, everything that they were looking forward to was dead and buried. And if you don't reach out for people from time to time, if you don't reach out to the ones that, because God will put people in your life for a reason. If you don't start reaching out to those people, then you don't know if they're starting to get to that dead and buried feeling. And when they really get there, if you don't bring that hope to them, sooner or later you're gonna ask yourself, what happened to them? And you're gonna say, because I loved them so much, what happened to them? And the scariest thought, and this is what one of the people I talked to this week said, the scariest thought is, they're gonna say, but I loved them so much, and they're gonna say, but you never showed me you loved me. You said it, but you never showed me. And that hit me so hard, because most people, they want to know it not just by what you say, but how you interact with them. And the hardest thing about loving somebody, or I'm going to say, well, it's not the hardest thing. Well, it is. Okay, I'm going to say the hardest thing about loving somebody, because it requires actual effort, is knowing how to deal with them. Not deal with everybody under the love bubble, but deal with them as individuals. And I'm finding that the more I do in my church community, and the more I do in my personal communities, whether it's with my interaction with Jules or with my wife, double your refreshment. But anyway, I have to deal with each person.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. but I have to deal with each person where they are, because I can't talk to my wife like I talk to Jules. I can't talk to Jules I cannot talk to Jules like I talk to my wife. I can't. I said a better chance of talking to my wife like I talk to Jules. But it does not work the other way around, right? But I the idea of that just keeps cracking me up. But it's but each person is an individual, and we started to lump everybody together in these groups and say, well, I'm just going to deal with everybody this way because I don't have time. And it's a very people are starting to get really hurt from this. There are people who you would never think were thinking about taking their own lives, and but pressure is hitting so many people. And the one thing that stands out to me about all of it is everybody that I talked to had lost a vision. And I should have saw it coming because of all the things that have been happening over the last couple of weeks. But everybody's starting to lose their vision, lose their hope, lose their hold, because they are on the I was talking to my wife about this. They're trying to take the Lot route. Everything looks so much better over here. It'd be easier over here. But then Lot ended up being get jacked by several things at the same time. And so I went through this whole story with the guy that I talked to on I was going to say Thanksgiving, because it sure felt like it, but because we were having church, but on 4th of July, and I was explaining to him, I said, sometimes it looks like things are going to be easier because it looks like it's working for everybody else, but it does not necessarily mean it's going to work for you. and we think that like there are words that everybody's using right now: normacy, easier, just want to relax. I mean, there's these phrases that I've been getting all week long, and I said, I'm going to just add all these to my book. I'm just going to add all these to the book, and the next time somebody says it, I'm going to just check it off. Yep, that one, that one. But there's these words because there's a struggle going on. Everybody's fighting. And they're getting to that fork in the road where they have to make decisions. And when you're going through hard things, it's hard to see completing the first road. It really is. I've been on this road several times,
Yep.
especially in the industry I'm in. Especially with this industry, you're like, do I hit the brakes or do I hit the gas? Now, if I hit the gas, are they going to die or just get wounded? Like, what am I so like, what am I going to do? Am I going to run them over because they lied to me? No, anyway.
Yes. Answer to that is yes.
No, it's not yes. The answer is not yes, Drew. How many times do I have to say this to you?
Yes, I can!
Yes, we can. No, we can't. You are not Obama. But everybody's getting to this point where they're needing to make a decision about what their passion is, what their real dream is, and more so than your dream, what is your vision? I even found, and this is what I thought was really entertaining, when I was getting ready for Bible study 2 weeks ago. There's a question that got asked to Zerubbabel, for all those who have been, because I realized from some of the messages that I saw online this week that a lot of people are looking up the scriptures that we talk about to see if we know what we're talking about. Come on, Dan, test me. Anyway, so. After my auntie, please. Yeah, easy. No, but Zerubbabel had started. God had freed him from slavery. So imagine that we all got freed from the thing that was holding us back the most. Okay, whether it was our own sense of what our lives should be, or whether it was drugs or alcohol or bad relationships or whatever. Something was holding us back. Right? We were captured by this thing. We're living in a place, we're basically living, because we had basically said, we're going to do things our way, so we ended up captive to that thing. So 70 years had passed, and then God freed his people from captivity, and then not only did they come out of captivity by Babylon and a few other places, they also sent them with all the supplies they would need to rebuild their temple. Zerubbabel and a few others were in charge of this whole thing. Well, Zerubbabel, excuse me, Zerubbabel, they started working on the foundation of this thing because they were so excited to be moving in a direction and to be going. And they saw that all they had to do was put a little work in, and they were going to build the temple back to its former glory, which basically means rebuild that connection not only with God but with the vision that God had given, right? Well, because it used to be so clear, so beautiful. Then enemies started attacking, saying, oh no, you're not going to finish this, because if you finish this, you're going to believe that anything's possible. So we can't let you finish this. So they started infiltrating the camp, because not everybody in the camp was as strong as the leaders of this whole thing. So so the work on the temple and everything had stopped because the people kept getting attacked with situation after situation. Their enemies kept attacking. And then once the enemies could no longer attack, they paid. Now this part, I had to read this a few times. They paid others to infiltrate the camp, become friends with the people, and then dishearten them so that they would not complete building the temple, because they were starting to get set against each other. Meanwhile, Zerubbabel was like, come on, y'all, we were working on the temple. The temple they worked for 2 years on the foundation of the temple. They did not get back to working on the temple for 17 years. And because everybody had lost a vision for it. They didn't understand, this thing. So God had to bring a new hope. But the first thing he had to do was bring that hope to Zerubbabel, who was the leader of this particular movement, right? So, so he goes and says, Zerubbabel, in a dream, he says, what do you see? And Zerubbabel starts describing all the things he sees. And, God has this way of asking you questions that you already know the answer, that he already knows you know the answers to, but he wants to see if you're actually going to acknowledge what you see. Just like, Adam, where are you at? Why are you hiding? You know, I'm naked, Lord. You can see everything about me. I gave it to you. Shut up and bring it out here. So because now I got to teach you how to clothe yourself and do all these stuff. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So people are like, get back to Zerubbabel. Okay, so the one woman actually said, I need to go back to church. This is a good story. But so um, so what happens is, so God says, basically, what do you see? And then Zerubbabel starts to describe all of these things that he sees. And I can't remember them all verbatim, so I'm not going to pretend I do. But the most important part of this thing is, what do you see? Because if you don't see anything, if you can't acknowledge what you see and what God is showing, because first off, God had to be showing it to him in the first place. Because Zerubbabel could have been a smart butt on a bad day and said, I see the inside of my eyelid because I'm sleeping on the job. You know, I see the roof because cause I'm laying down. You know, he could have did whatever we try to do. We try to avoid when God's asking us a very direct question. Because we do. We're some avoiding people. Like, we will simply say, well, I just don't see it. Okay, first off, God is not going to ask you a question about what do you see, and he had not shown you a thing. Like, because I've never seen it happen in the scripture where he said, what do you see? No. And then nothing. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to bring it to you. Hold on. Like, he never did that. You know, he asked Peter when Peter was on the roof, Peter, what do you see this, and this? Well, all these are good for you to eat. You can eat any of these things. You know, but he's good at giving everybody a vision, right? So Zerubbabel's like, well, I do see all these things. And God says, well, I'm in all of these things. I'm in this. He said, and just to let you know that when you put the final stone into the completed structure, that's when the people will start to rejoice. And I said, so I stopped the Bible study at that point. I said, now, have you ever started a project? Okay, and everybody at the beginning is like, yeah, that's gonna happen. That's it. That's cool. We gonna crank this out. We gonna smash. And then those people that with you for, I don't know, 2 weeks, 2 months, a year, right? Then they all start to dissipate and start asking you, well, when's it going to happen? Haven't we been working on this for a while? When's this going to happen? That's what they were doing in this Zerubbabel, right? Because everybody else started talking to them, like, well, how come it's not done yet? Well, when's this going to happen? When's that going to happen? When's this, right? And I was cracking up. I was like, Zerubbabel was in the music industry. But anyway,
for sure. Sounds like a DJ name. DJ
Zerubbabel. That's a whole new mix. Oh man, but so and I had to explain. I said, so then these people leave, but then they see that, yeah, you're discouraged. Work had stopped. They don't hear anything else from you about the project you're working on, this, that, and the other, because everybody, except for the few people that decided to hang out, but those few people now had to work on this big vision, this big thing, because all the supplies were already there. Everything they needed to build the temple was there. The people stopped moving, right? And so the few people that helped Zerubbabel, now the rest, it was a big army of them at first. Now it's just a little crew. And this little crew is still supposed to be working on the temple. So they're like, oh, it's just a few of us. How's this going to happen? There's no way this is going to happen. Look at this. And your arm is busted. You know, your wife yelling at you because you spend too much time here at the temple. You know, you're going to lose your whole family over this temple. You know, stuff like that, right? And so then God comes, he speaks, says, what do you see? Shows him, you know, all these different things, and shows him that, you know, God is in the whole situation, that he's surrounding the situation. Then he says that the moment you put the last stone in, the people will rejoice. The people will start to say, wow, we did this, right? So how true is that today, where suddenly the thing that you all worked on, then they left, and then you get it done, they come back like, wow, we really did this.
I knew it all along. I knew.
Like, yeah, we did that. Oh, yeah, you know. And then when that happens, this is why the music industry, people get so like, yeah, I did it without you. You know, now I'm on top and you still sitting there when you could have been rolling with me. What, right? But all God said was, let them rejoice, because now they have hope again. Because if this could happen even when they did get kind of off and whatever, then imagine how much more then, because God didn't just bless Zerubbabel to finish it. This blessing was for more than just Zerubbabel. This blessing was for everybody that had been freed, but he had to complete the mission that was in front of him. And so I was going through this story, with a guy on, and he said, man, as much as I read scriptures, he said, I've never heard that story broken down that way. He said, so so all I have to do is acknowledge the fact that God's not done yet. And this is just something to help me get to the place where I appreciate and understand that there's something to be built here. I said, yeah. I said, because if you went on your own route, I said, just like my blindness and this, that, and the other, I said, if it had not been for my blindness or the other ailments that hit me, to be quite honest, I would not feel like I needed anybody. I would not have the relationship I have with God, and I would not have even met my wife because I've been too busy trying to become my own star. I said, but because of the disabilities and ailments and stuff, I not, I, not that I've slowed down, like this, I'm more aware of the things that are most important because I'm not ruled by the other things. And and now it's important to also recognize that people who are going through these, these life-changing situations, from, kidney issues to, what do you call that, neuro issues to, possibly going blind. And then one girl I talked to this week, she is having all the symptoms of diabetes, but it's not coming up as the test for the sugar level isn't the issue. So, but it runs in her family. Diabetes runs in the family. I said, yes, but there are occasions when there is where you can have all the symptoms and not have the sugar issue, but it still be considered diabetes, but they have to run a different kind of test, and, just all these things. People are being hit left and right, but the only thing being attacked in each situation is their vision of themselves, the vision for their future. What do they see? And until people can actually answer the question, they're kind of stuck in a loop. So I keep asking people the same question over and over again, whether I'm wheezing or I'm feeling good. Like, what do you see, though? What do you see? I mean, my wife and I are about to go through a process just in case somebody needs us. We have to find out, because we might have to adopt somebody who just needs a new vision for her life. But because the vision she currently has is just not, I see much more for her. But to do that means that that we have to be willing to change our lives a bit, and yet still move in the direction that God is sending us. And so it all comes down to the vision we have. So when you guys take the time out to rewatch this show, because I know a lot of you like to go back and rewatch it because we talk kind of fast according to what people are saying.
Oopsies.
Oh no, it's good. They like the rhythm. It keeps them from getting bored. So they just go back and rewatch it. A lot of people actually download it, which is kind of cool. But ask yourself, what do you see? This is what God is often asking us. What do you see? Because when he sent them over to spy out the land, and he said, okay, what do you see? A lot of them came back and said, what was it? 10 of them came back and said, giants. We can't beat them. This is too big. How are we going to, oh my God, we all going to die in this situation, right? But it was Joshua and one of the others, I can't remember, I think Caleb or something, said, no, they're giants, but we can take them. Right? That's my boy. But like these situations that we're facing right now, these times that we're going through right now, they're giants. They really are. And if you treat them as anything else, then you're going to get beat the heck up. Oh, I was the other one. But you are really literally going to get jacked up, because don't try to downplay things that are real to you. If you start to downplay them, then you're not going to give them the respect they deserve. So that when you formulate a plan on how to overcome that thing, you're going to be woefully unprepared. I don't always want to use that phrase, but you're going to be woefully unprepared. But if you treat these things as what they are, because the only reason these things will come at you this size is because you're that much closer to where God is calling you to be. So when when Lot was going to, when he had to separate from Abraham, he went to a place that he chose the part that he thought was going to be best. He ended up getting attacked by several different situations, all at the same time. They hit him so hard he couldn't see clearly anymore, and he got captured, and all his stuff got captured because everybody was after him. Because remember, he was one of the richest people. He ruled with Abraham, who was the richest man on earth at one point. You know what I'm saying? So, but every situation hit him from the left, the right, several kings. And even though he ruled with a lot of kings, he got overwhelmed because he just he just got overwhelmed. But then I love this part. Abram went back for him. Like Sarah, his wife, said, Abram, what you gonna do? Where you going? He said, I'm going to go get him out. He took 100 and some odd people with him and went to go get him because Abram was not going to leave him. Just because they disagreed and they separated does not mean that he did not love him and did not want to see the best for him. And he went back and got him. Not only did he defeat the other kings, but he got all their stuff. And then when they tried to say, oh, here, keep this for yourself, he said, no, I don't want anything. Just feed my men so we can go home. Because it's not about that. Because I don't want you to say that you're responsible for my success or my whatever. But when my friends are going through the things that I've seen them going through recently, and they look like they're getting a little lost, I was telling this to my wife. I said, she said something like, so what are you gonna do? I said, I gotta go get them. I said, they're getting attacked left, right, and center. I said, if we don't go back to get them, then what good are we? Because most people want to charge forward and say, well, that's the decision they made. My wife was a big fan of that one. She looked back over there like, yep, right? And as because Abram wasn't in the best mood in the first place when he had to go through all that, because he was a little hurt, because all this dissension was happening within with him and his nephew at the time, and it was not between him and his nephew, but their peoples, so. So he was kind of going through, and he wasn't. I'm sure he wasn't the happiest camper. He's like, no, gotta go get them. I gotta go get them, because it matters that much. They're part of this whole. They're part of this journey that God has put us on. Gotta go get them. And I realized that over the last couple of weeks, I've been in the gotta go get them mentality. Like if we got a. Well, the way I say it, if we got to look up and go get them, then, let's throw our war clothes on and go get them. That means going in prayer. That means talking to them. That means helping to understand what the vision is. That means getting back to them that we know, as opposed to the situations that's trying to change them into the person that they don't even know. Because then it gets scary when you don't recognize yourself anymore. And with everybody I talked to this week, they stopped being able to see themselves. Somebody had to go get them and let them know that they are valued, that they still have value, and that their value is not depreciating just because they are going through some things. And that's hard for us to do because it requires time. It just does. For you to understand, for you to understand how to talk to people who are going through difficult things, or just how to be there, because not everybody needs to be talked to, and not everybody needs to be talking. Let me make that clear. If you're good at getting out of situations, and you're like, some people are very matter of fact. This is how it needs to be dealt with. Deal with it this way. Get over it, right? I have a friend like that, right? and when I was sitting in studio talking to this friend, right, all of a sudden she needed my approach. Her approach is do it this way. Da-da-da. If you can't do it that way, then something wrong with you. But then as our problem came up, I said, and I handled it my way. I talked to her my way. She said, wow, that really does feel, you're right. Da, da, da. I said, you made your decision so quick because you wanted to be a decision maker that you forgot to look at the actual fullness of the problem. And it's important that if you're not a person if you know you cannot talk to people, be there for them. Cook. If you know you cannot cook, take them to a movie. So be there for them, because that's all anybody's asking for is, can you just please be there? Because I'm going through. And nowadays, men and women are starting to treat these situations the exact same way. Well, if you really loved me, you'd know I was going through, so I shouldn't have to tell you.
Telepathy.
Telepathy. Oh my God, I just lost my ears. Oh, that's hilarious. But people know how to talk about public problems, but they don't know how to talk about the things that hurt their heart. And so it's kind of our job as the ones who love them to make sure that we're paying attention to them, because it's not just about things happening easily. Because friendships and communities nowadays, they don't happen as organically as they used to. Nope. They take work, okay, and they take understanding. When my friend said, I understand you can't be here with me all the time, and I don't want you to be. I understand you cannot participate with me in these situations and blah, blah. You know, he said, if you were supposed to be in a meeting and you choose to come to a funeral over the meeting, he said, A, as your friend, I would, A, be like, man, he's my real friend. But then he'd be like, but you weren't in that meeting? He said, because I know that you love me. I know that you want to be there for me. But if you're not there for the things that are going to help more than just me, after a while, I'm going to become very resentful of the fact that you keep choosing me over all the people that you're supposed to be working with. I'm like, who is this dude? But and my wife is kind of the same way too, which is awe-inspiring. Like any man out there who can find a woman who says, I may not always want you to be gone, but I want you to live out the purpose God has for you. Good Lord, keep her. If she can't cook, it don't matter.
There's always takeout.
There's always takeout. Call Jules, she'll cook. No.
I'll give you the number to take out. How about that?
She'll give you the number to take out. So I got a whole wall of them. What you want? Yeah. Chinese? No, we don't talk to them. No. You want some Thai food? You know. So Jules is I know, right? Jules is one would be, you want some fried chicken? I can get you some fried chicken. You know, no. I'd believe her too. But there's a lot of things that are going on out there, and most of these things that we're talking about tonight, whether it be from people losing their vision, or another big one. The show, like, we had a couple options for tonight's show, to be quite honest with you guys, because there've been a lot of big topics, and like suicide's a very big topic, and the reasons that people go that route, they're very real reasons. And a lot of times people say, well, basically people try to negate the real reasons behind people making that decision for themselves. And a lot of the time when people commit suicide, it's not about themselves. They feel like they're doing it for others. They feel like they're taking the pressure off of somebody else. So, because if it was just about them, they'd be like, well, whatever. But it's not about them. It's about them feeling like they are a burden or too much pressure on someone else. Or that's usually a big part of it. They feel like their life is valueless, and people keep trying to give their life value. So they're stressing out, or they're trying to do too much for them, and they're not worth it. So showing somebody that they're worth it is very important. But how do you show someone they're worth it? That is key. It's not just by talking and saying I love you. It's about being hard on them when they need somebody to be hard on them. Most kids who don't have somebody who's going to give them discipline and structure, they feel unloved and unappreciated and unwanted. But when you give them structure and discipline, they say, and I'm not talking about abuse, y'all. I'm saying discipline, right?
What's the difference? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. See, that's why I had to say it. Mind myself. But y'all lucky Jules and I are not your parents. But anyway, Jules, you gonna swing first? Talk to me.
Yeah.
You talk to me outside of her mouth, so she gonna lose her mouth. It's gonna be a gaping hole. No structure. Anyway, never smile again. No. That just all sounds so violent. But anyway, so one of the best ways to be there is to treat them like they matter. You're not coddling, because if somebody had coddled me when I was in that frame of mind, it would have told me that they pity me. And if they had told me, and if I had felt that way, then I would have known. I'd have felt more like I was a burden on them, and that what I assumed about who I was to them was correct. Because all their actions are saying, well, you're right, but I don't want you to think you're right. Like, sound like Brian's girlfriend on Family Guy. What? Everything is like this, So.
My side.
But but it's important. Yeah, wow. But it is important that you take the time to treat them with treat them with the kind of love that you've received from God. So God doesn't coddle you all the time.
No.
Sometimes he says, look, get up and do something. Because you can have all the faith in the world, but faith without works is dead. So he's telling you, get up and do something. You can't talk about, I wish things were this way, that way, or whatever. God says, okay, so I told you that I'm going to bless everything that your hands touch, but if you don't plant nothing, you ain't going to eat nothing. So so I just multiplied your nothing because that's what you gave me to work with. Nothing.
He's so G.
Now, if you plant, if God says I'm going to multiply everything by 100, and you give me nothing, you have 100 more nothings than you had just a second ago. That might be a sermon. That might be one of my sermons coming up. But got so many of them now. But the real is, God's going to keep asking you until you answer, what do you see? Because people are losing their vision. And if you don't have one, then how are you going to share yours with them so that they can catch the vision? God said it was our job to tell people our testimony, to inspire them, to convince them, to lift his name up that they too might be saved. But you have to have more than words to do that. You have to have a vision for your future to accomplish that.
Oops. I clicked
So,
on something by accident.
So cooking. She's like, where did it go? But you do have to have, so you can read all the Bible you want. You can. But if you don't have a vision for where you want to be in this story, if you don't have a vision of who God is in your life, if you don't have it's going to be very hard for you to convince others. If you so it's I hear what you guys are, and I hear what you guys are saying. So it's just the big issue is this one. Then we're gonna end it on this one. You have a vision. A lot of you women have a vision to be married. A lot of you men have a vision to be married one day. It's funny how that happens. But anyway, this was actually gonna be one of the topics we're gonna talk about today. But so we'll probably have to do a more prolonged version of it. But there's this list that I pulled up for a show a couple weeks ago, and we never got to it. Shocker. But we never got to it. But it's basically talking about the qualities that you look for and how you know that you're ready to marry somebody and all this kind of stuff. And then everybody's been talking about what it means to be equally yoked. Okay. To be equally yoked does not mean that the person is perfect, because you're not perfect. So get over yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the first thing. It was a great piece of advice that my uncle gave me once, and he was so funny I never forgot it. But it does mean that the person is seeking a relationship with God before they even are seeking a relationship with you. Because if you become more important than their relationship with God is, then what happens is the whole relationship is already screwed up. The priority is wrong. It's out of whack, right?
Because it's in the commandments. You shall not have anything before me.
Exactly. That means no meal. No. Anyway, so yeah. Say your blessing before you eat that food. But anyway, but it means that, like, for the women, especially because I know I'm gonna have this conversation a few times with my daughter. If a man does not put God before he puts you before you, then he's not going to know how to love you correctly. He's not going to know how to love you like Christ loved the church, because he's not going to know how Christ loved the church. So you don't want a man, when you mess up or make him mad, he's going to just ditch you and just say, you know what, I can't deal with you. You crazy, blah, blah. Boom. You spent all the money. Boom. You did it. Boom. There's gonna be a lot of booms if you if you're with
it's like
somebody.
a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah. Slow motion boom. Jamie Foxx had the but no, you got the boom. You got the boom. No, anyway,
Ooh, I gotta write that down for next song.
You got the boom. But oh man, for a song that might come out bad. But anyway. Oh, you have to really describe that one in the software to come across correctly. Uh, but but he's got like he's got to know how to love you through anything that can come up because everything will. Okay. Um, right now, the most popular topics in these young marriages are children. When do we have kids? Is your career going to get in the way of us having kids? Um, what I just dealt with last week, which was so when talking to actresses, it's a little more interesting because um, you are kind of teaching people about your career and because there's a lot more than ever. I was reading an article about this. More now than ever, there's a lot more love scenes on the screen, big screen, small screen, YouTube screen. Like every screen has a lot more love scenes enacted because it's how you catch people's attention because most people don't know how to feel that for themselves. So they're going places to find passion, to find romance because the idea of romance doesn't really exist the way it used to. It's got a different feel and different definition now. So sad, but true. So, so so when you're in these relationships, the balance is kind of it's a really now you're teaching everybody about who you are as a creative mind. Like I walked my wife through the process from beginning to end but I started early in that process. I couldn't. After I saw them jealous eyes shoot across and start cutting people's heads off, I said, we better start this now because they didn't stop till a couple years after we were married, but if we hadn't started before we got married, oh, brother, it wouldn't have worked out. So, because I saw that she was willing. That's when you kind of know offhand if people are willing. Like my wife saw me perform with women, coming at me on stage, this, that, and the other, and she's like, you know what? I don't have to like it, but I know you're good at what you do, and I trust you. Mm-hmm. But I don't like them. But I trust. She made that abundantly clear. But I trust you. And she always like, it ain't easy, to deal with all this, but I trust you. And that's really what matters is the relationship I have with my wife is not my relationship with my wife and everybody else's opinion. It's my relationship with my wife, right? Well, but I knew that she loved the Lord. Her without getting into it, her previous relationship before me ended because she loved the Lord. And I was like, well, doggone, if you're willing to walk away because you know that God said this ain't the right one, then doggone, you have some faith, girl. Hope I measure up. Hope I meet the requirements list. And you know what? She actually had a list. She did. I was joking. She's like, no, for real, I have one. And she read it to me. She's like, wow. And you meet everything on it. She said the black and the blind part weren't on there, but hey, bonus tracks. But anyway. But
if you call now in the next 10 minutes.
Call now in the next 10 minutes, you get these 2 bonus tracks. Oh,
but
man.
Wait, there's more.
There's more. Oh, never mind. But be like, but wait, there's more. Surprise! But yeah, like Jules. Oh man, what happened to our show? But anyway, but the thing is like when it comes to equally yoked, let me see if I can do this the fast way. You want somebody who's going to not only put God first, but is going to recognize your value. Not and your value does not mix well with fear. When my wife operated in fear, in relationship standpoint, we could not move forward because she had a fear that somebody was going to take me away from her. She had a fear of this and a fear of that. Now, true, those things came like waves, but I always caught her when she was in a good wave. We surfed as far as we could before the next one came up. You see what I'm saying? So that we could get as much movement forward as possible. So that way when these other big ones came up, we were further along than we could have been. Mm-hmm. But most people, they don't know how to keep things moving. They wait on that big one and say, well, if you're going to act that way, we're going to stay right here. We ain't going nowhere until, no, because she wasn't always up like this. She would ease out. She would come down a bit. She would, and she'd start to understand and blah, blah. But then most of the time found out that when those waves hit, it wasn't because they were on her mind. It was because somebody came along and started talking a bunch of crap.
Mm-hmm. Of
That's a whole,
course.
yeah. But it's not just about the talking crap. It's about who talks the crap that affects the wavelength, the wave height. And so sooner or later, it happens to most of us. I'm not going to say all of us because some of us have been blessed in that area. But a lot of times, like I was getting ready to say something, but I heard something right here. But like family. Can we talk about family? Can we just get an amen? Family will have their opinions, just in general, about your relationship. When the family starts speaking on your relationship, then you have one or two gut reactions, depending on your family. Reaction number one, you know what? They may have a point there. Let me think about this for a minute because maybe I'm just not seeing something. Okay, that's the reaction that your parents and people want you to have. Let me tell you about the more average, the more common response. Oh, they don't know me. They don't know my love. They don't know our love, baby. They don't know, they
my love.
They don't see that we're meant for each other. They don't understand. Now, I had this conversation with my father-in-law today because it was just funny to me, right? So I had talked to him real quick, and it went something like, what did you see in me when I asked you to marry your daughter? His response was very simple. He said, you loved God, and then you loved her. He said, and you were not afraid to stand up and show it. You had no fear of what your lives had in store. So therefore, I was very confident in your ability as a man. He said, because you weren't rich, but I didn't need you to be rich. I needed you to be rich in love for her. Because she was going to go through some things in life, and you were going to be able to stand by her. He said, his only concern was my sight. He said, but it wasn't a concern to him. He said, but since it wasn't a concern to me, it really didn't remain a concern to him. You see what I'm saying? But he said, but all parents have their, wish list. He said, he said, but before he recognized it, I had met his for his daughter. So I'm like, okay, cool, because I was talking about something else. But but with him too. But I'm like, okay, cool. But my mom, same thing. My mom said, I don't know if she has the strongest backbone, but one thing I know is that she loves you, so she's going to put the work in, and she wants to be for you what you need her to, what you need in your life. So she said, and you know what the truth is? I don't really see that. I don't see that in people anymore. Nobody wants to be for somebody. They just want the person to be. Ready-made, out the window, 90 seconds or less. So when you guys are asking about, how do you know if you're in a good relationship? How do you know if your relationship's going to work? How do you know if you're, equally yoked because you want to, look at the way not only you guys are in your relationship, because that is going to appear however you want to see it. I'll just be people who are in jacked up relationships will go around talk about, oh, we happy though, we happy. You're like, are you watching the same show I'm watching?
Remember like, Jersey Shore?
Yeah, exactly. I just saw him clock you with his elbow in your eye, and then you punched him in his jewels, and then you said, but we happy? Are y'all MMA fighters? No, separate. Right? But a key is, and this is something that I heard my father-in-law say today, and my mom has said in the past. She said, watch who they are. She's basically, this is how she told me to especially work with my wife. She said, watch who she is outside the relationship. Is she committed? Is she somebody who's always working to improve? Is she somebody who would be going to church with if you weren't? Is she and at one point, that's how it was. She was going when I wasn't. Is she somebody who is going to still want the best for you, hope the best for you? Is she somebody who's going to be doing these things for you? And and I was like, huh? Because before that, we dated, so we were, I wasn't thinking about nothing like that. Like in my old relationships, I really didn't think about it. I was like, you cute, I'm cute, we get along, let's go. And let the adventures ensue. Now. So I'm saying this to all you guys, like, look at the person you're with a filter. Take them out of the relationship context for a minute and ask, would you recommend this to your very best friend, or even better than that, your sibling? Because you have requirements that you put on the people for your sibling now. Yeah, you really do. My wife said, yes, I do. Because if you wouldn't recommend the one you're with to somebody that you love and would never want to see hurt, that might be a sign that there's something that you're noticing that you're just trying to hide from yourself. So take yourself out the equation, because we lie to ourselves very well. We are expert liars in ourselves. And then when we get hurt and depressed, we always say the same thing. See, and I knew it. I just didn't listen to my first instinct. No, you didn't listen to your first instinct because you shot it and put it in the corner and said, shut up. I want to hear what you got to say right now. I'm happy. Doggone it. But all those little bells and whistles are going off, and you're like, oh, I don't hear nothing but your love, baby.
Just put earplugs in. Yep.
Yeah. It's like, why are you walking around with earplugs, a pillow, and earmuffs? Like, why you... So, I love cartoons, y'all. Sue me. I don't care. But you got to really take inventory. Before I asked my wife to marry me, which literally, I asked her on the 4th of July, 13 years ago. Okay, and got into a car accident that day before I even got a chance to give her the ring. It was interesting. Ooh. Oh yeah, it was like one of those movies where you're going through every tragic thing that could happen on your way to get engaged. It really happened. Then she said no to me twice before she said yes. So.
Oh, she did? I did not know that.
Oh yeah, she said no twice. She told me everything she wanted in an engagement, because you women tend to do that. I don't know why.
Oh, so you didn't do it right. Do it again. Go back and learn.
No.
Is that what
she said no. Here's what happened. I'll break it down. She said she would love to go out and have a nice meal, maybe take a nice little walk, have a symphony, little things like that, right? And then
little things like a symphony.
Symphony, just some nice music playing, and it's fireworks, and she had this image. But my wife's a TV wife. She loves the screen. So this is the setting for every great grand love gesture in every great old movie, right? And she wanted that.
And the doves are coming with the ring, and the lamb's right on my hand.
No, that's Disney. She said the doves are coming with the lamb's right on my hand. No, that's Disney. I didn't say Disney. We can't afford Disney visions. Sorry. Okay. So what we did was, I saved up, because I really wasn't, I wasn't with the label or anything at that point. So saved up, got her this ring. But I didn't want to just get her any kind of ring. I needed a ring that described her to me, so she's always been my heart. So I always get her rings and jewelry always are hearts for me. Right, so excuse me. So I get her that, but then my best friend has to drive me to the place, pick up the ring. Then on our way back, we get clipped and slightly spin, and the car, of course, hit us on my side. Right, as we're making a left-hand turn, the car did not stop for the red light. Boom, my side. And he said, let me get this insurance real quick, but we can't stop because we gotta get you through this engagement, because I had dinner plans and stuff. He said, I'll just come back and I'll take care of all this stuff, but let's get you where you need to be. That's my road dog. Anyway, so
serious.
He said it was just a little spin. He said, do you spin all the time when you perform? Oh man, it was just hilarious. So I get ready, and then we go to this. I can't remember where we had dinner, but Alfredo's. Well, we go to Alfredo's, which is one of her favorite places. So we have this nice, really nice dinner. Then we take a nice little walk, and at the time was a very beautiful park. Not anymore, but beautiful park. I happened to read that the park was going to have a symphony playing. So we had a nice little, they had this great big gazebo, and they had all these instruments and beautiful music just echoing through the park. 4th of July, I picked it because fireworks. That's what she wanted. She wanted fireworks, right? And so we're walking along. She has her symphony jewels. She has her fireworks jewels. She has her romantic dinner. And I ask, and I find this great location right next to the lake, and I say, so, what do you think about becoming my wife? She says, oh, stop playing. I'm like, who? I ask her again. A little down the road. She said, because she knew she would know when I'm going to engage. She knew she had it all figured out, Jules. And you know how I work. So I asked her again. She said, "Don't do that. Don't have, whatever." Basically, it amounted to a no, right? In my mind, it was a no. So then we go back to my place. She's dropping me off, and now, Jules, it was to the point to where I didn't even have the ring with me. Why? Because I knew that she was not going to think that this was everything she asked for. Why you ask for all this stuff and then you don't even recognize it when it's happening right here? People are actually looking as I'm asking her to be my wife because I actually had like people ready to throw stuff and crap, right? But whatever. So anyway, no, because you said no. I'm talking to the people here. Stop, get out of my conversation. Anyway, so Jules just shaking her head at you. Anyway, so then people are like, "Oh, that's so romantic. Oh my God." So we go back to my place, and she's saying her goodbye. She gives me a kiss, and she's about to walk out the door, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to ask you one more time." I said, "Now, will you marry me? I got to know, or I can't give you this." This jaw drops to the floor. I mean, it was straight cartoon. Boom. Like, oh my God, you were serious? I'm like, I told you that when I ask you to marry me, it's gonna be the way you want it. She had everything on her list, Jules. She said no.
That's pretty funny.
It's a good thing I was persistent. These people are cracking me up right now.
Well, technically, you didn't ask her.
On one knee.
No. See, she said I wasn't down on one knee. You said I didn't technically ask her. But the men in this thing are saying that qualifies because one woman's like, "Well, have you asked her before that point?" No, I had not. Thank you very much.
So you guys had never discussed marriage before that?
We had talked about, the idea of getting married. I mean, come on, my wife was asking about when we'd be getting married 5 months into our relationship. So
right.
5 months into our relationship. She keeps trying to add another month so she doesn't sound desperate. But my mother reminds me, you think that girl wanted to marry you 5 months after she met you? But anyway, so we've been playing this numbers game lately with a lot of things. But anyway, so this but no, I had never, because I knew the day I asked her to marry me would be the day I asked her to marry me. I was not going to be like, "So what do you think about getting married?" Because first off, that's a terrible thing to do to a woman, to keep talking about marriage but then not do anything about it. Because after a while, it loses its magic and it's like, "Well, we're getting engaged like in 3 weeks." What? Come on. People do too much planning. Like, talk about if you want to be married to each other or not, once or twice throughout the course of the relationship, but we didn't bring it up all the time. Because then she'd be hounding me about it. Like, "Well, what do you think about, well, maybe if we, like right now, we're talking about our renewal, right? So what does she do? Well, I'm thinking that maybe we should do this or do this or do this." And I'm thinking, well, first, let's figure out when we're going to save the money to do those things. Because I'm more interested in not the renewal per se, because come on, we're married to preachers in our family. We can get renewed anytime we want to. Let's take a good old cruise so we can go celebrate because we didn't get a real honeymoon our first time. Let's go get a real honeymoon this time without the kids. Let's go do that. See, I think like a man. She think like a woman. All she know, but here's her latest update, though. I'm sharing with all y'all. She wants an INNERMIX concert at the wedding.
Yes, I do.
So for those of y'all who didn't believe, you heard it here. She wants an INNERMIX concert at the reception because there are too many songs that we have that she likes to just not have them at the thing.
You're going to be very busy that night. On stage, next to your wife, on stage, next to your mom, making vows, on stage, singing, next to your wife.
Oh man, one person said you're gonna be busy. One person started what you said, but then they finished it in a whole different way. Because Jules said I'm gonna be busy that night on stage, then next to you, then on stage, then next to you. But one person's like, you're gonna be on stage next to your wife in bed. You're gonna be busy all night. It's like you go. You girls are bad. Okay, but anyway, y'all. Okay. We're getting one quick question, which is, what did your families honestly think of you guys getting married? And my wife is very vocal tonight, as y'all can see. My mother was in favor of it after we did the marriage counseling thing, and she realized that my wife was just she just was all about me. She, she wanted somebody who was going to love me no matter what was going on with me, because I had so many ailments and issues or whatever. But my wife just didn't care. All she saw was me. And but my mother came back to me after our little meeting and basically said, I was wrong about her. But see, that's the thing I look about my mom is quick with the apologies and the I was wrong. Until I heard her talk about it, she said, I really thought that she was just in to get out, of her household. But no, she really loves you the best way she knows how right now. So in a couple of years, you ain't gonna be able to shake that stick. She said she gonna be on you like white on rice. And I said, I think she's there now. She says it's gonna be extra white on rice. So
It's not white, it's gonna be translucent.
It's translucent white on rice. Right. So so it's just very interesting. Her mom was not a big fan of it, but her mom had a different picture of the whole situation. And then her dad, oh man, the look on his face when he walked his baby down the aisle was just like, it was crazy. Like he was because she's his oldest, and he was just a proud papa. So, it's cool. Plus, me and her dad just have this really cool relationship. So he was all for it. He was really cool and all for it. Matter of fact, he had started saving money for our wedding from the moment that he thought that it was possible that we're going to be getting married. He had put money aside. He said, I don't have much, but I saved this. I can't remember what we used it for.
Our first bedroom set.
Oh, our first bedroom set. That's right. But it broke, so yeah.
And on that note,
what happened? Could have had termites. Y'all nasty. So anyway, you guys, stay good. Oh, I was did the Jerry Springer sign off. Stay good to yourself and each other. Oh man, look. Pay attention to the ones who surround you. Don't be afraid to have a good time, and don't be afraid to have a good time in love. Okay, if you're in a relationship and you're trying to figure out where the relationship is going, stand back and look at the person. Don't look at them all up on you and your vision for them, because that's what I want to say. Your vision for the person may not be their vision for them.
Yep.
Be careful. Because I have a friend right now who's been married for a few years, and something that me and my wife saw in the relationship, we had brought to her attention. She said, no, it's going to be okay. I've got this. So we left it alone. I saw her a couple days ago. She said the same stuff is still happening, but now I've just become numb to it. And it's actually gotten worse. So she's becoming numb in her own relationship because she thought she might have the power to change the behavior of the person. But if the person doesn't see a problem with their behavior, or they don't seem to have the forward-moving mentality of it's changing, you have to ask yourself, how long are you willing to wait for it to change? Because now she has left the idea of being happy. That's gone. She's okay with just being, because she refuses to get divorced, even though if she had not refused, she'd already be divorced. Mm-hmm. So it's a real thing. Today, and I just know today it's important that you step back, look at everything for what it is, not what you want it to be, so that you can see if your vision. Because like me and my wife, her vision for herself was not the vision I had for her. It was not. I saw this woman who was going to be able to do multiple things in multiple different situations, and was going to be like the den mother for all these different situations that were going to hit us in life. She saw herself as a math teacher getting paid X amount of money per year and just doing that. That was pretty much her picture. That was her vision. So we found a way to combine our visions, but ultimately, I gave her a new vision, and she was more than happy to take that vision because she lost the job. We lost the child. We lost all our money. Bankruptcy was our only way out. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things happened. She lost her vision because she had accomplished it, and then it got taken away from her. She needed a new vision. I gave her a vision that I had for her, but I had not just for her, but for us. And in that, she ended up doing all the things that she wanted to do, plus more. And she's happy. And happy wife, happy life. Amen. Amen. so, so make sure that if you have a vision for the one that you're with, that they share that vision. Because you can't have a vision for somebody and not tell them. Don't do that. Because that's when people get upset. It's like about, you're not living up to my expectation of you.
What are they?
What are they? I don't know what that is, you know. Well, I always saw you doing this, that, and the other. When were you going to tell me that? Because I never saw me doing that. That's not even an option. Not even worth discussing. Don't do that. So anyway, you guys have a great week. It's going to be next week. We're definitely talking about something.
Yep, we will for sure.
Guaranteed. No, we're most likely talking about love, how to love yourself, and how to get closer to that vision you have for yourself. Because I think we're going to have to go through the vision series because it looks like it's time.
It's time. Anyway,
yeah.
Thank you for joining us for the show tonight. It has been swell.
Swell.
It's Jules.
Well, this Simply D.
This has been the INNERMIX Show Hangouts. We will see you next week, Monday at 9 p.m.
Do you want to tell them how they can find us online?
All right. You can find us here.
She bad.
Google Plus.
She bad.
You can find us on Facebook. Just type INNERMIX, INNERMIX. You can find us on Twitter. That's INNERMIX_show. You can find us on Instagram, INNERMIX360, and Google Plus INNERMIX.
Show. Close. She almost had it all. I'll give her a solid B on that one. I was waiting because she started off with it, but then she jumped to the next one because I figured she must have forgot what it was. But cool, girl.
No, that's all they gotta know. They're already here. Anyway.
Yeah.
Love you guys. See you next week.
Okay, see y'all.
Bye.
Bye.